You're listening to Northwoods Church Matters, a podcast of Northwoods Church in Evansville, Indiana, where we discuss why the local church matters and things that matter to the local church. I'm your host, Matt Higgins. Hey, welcome back to the Northwoods Church Matters podcast. I've got some great guests with us today. I've got our lead pastor, Bobby Pell. You're here again.
I am.
Yeah, awesome. And our special guest today, Mr. Nick Scott, one of the pastors at Oakhill Baptist Church. Glad you're with us today.
That's good to be with you.
Are you still on staff with Oakhill?
Technically, no. Sunday, yeah.
Did you get fired?
Well, no, not quite that bad. No,
Yeah.
Sunday was our last Sunday at Oakhill. We were able to say goodbye to a lot of people that we love and just kind of had some closure there. It was a sweet Sunday.
Well, we've kind of gotten into you leaving before where are you going? All sorts of Northwoods people are asking, what's going on at Oakhill?
That's right. Yeah.
Nick, tell us about what you're doing. Where are you going?
Yes. Well, my family has felt the call to go onto the international mission field, and we are currently in the process with the International Mission Board of the Southern Baptist Convention to go to Japan at some point later this year. And so we are excited about that. It's been a long time coming for this process, but we are here to go wherever the Lord leads. We feel confident that He's leading us right now to go to the country of Japan.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Why Japan?
Well, Japan, because there's just so much need there. And a lot of people on the face of just looking at Japan as a country would maybe not assume that it has much need because it's modern in society. And you think of sometimes missionaries going to only places that are maybe third world in status. But Japan is the second largest unreached people group in the world by statistics. And so there's an incredible need for missionaries to take the gospel there and to resource churches that are already there, but maybe need help and additional hands on deck to take the gospel to the people around them. Also, just the fact that pastoral leadership is also very old in Japan. The average age for the Japanese pastor is over the age of 50.
Oh, wow.
Over 90% are over the age of 50. And so there's a very big need for leadership development within churches as well. And so there's all kinds of ways that missionaries or people that feel called to go and to serve and to take the gospel and to help serve however they can, there's all kinds of need. And so that's really one of the reasons why we feel called to go to Japan. And then just I'll chalk it up to the Lord just leading our hearts in that direction. And just as we've prayed about where, God, would you have us go, He's just kind of brought one thing after another to indicate that we need to go in this direction. And so it's just been a really neat process to see the Lord's guiding and moving in our lives to lead us to this place that ultimately before a year ago we had never been to. And so
Awesome. You'd be a young pastor in Japan,
I would be,
Bobby. Yeah.
there you go.
Yeah.
That'd be a bit-
Let me ask this. When did you first think about missions?
I first thought about missions as a firm thing that our family would do as a vocation really about 3 years ago is really when I started to entertain the idea. It wasn't because I was dissatisfied at Oakhill and I just got upset and wanted to leave, but it was more out of something that in my spirit, I felt that I was doing something that was good in being there and serving the church, but I felt that I could do something better in the sense that God had something else for our family to do. And so as I began to explore a little bit more and search, you actually reached out to me and invited me to go on one of the Ecuador trips that you went in early 2019. And after going on that trip with you and kind of experiencing what we were a part of in Ecuador, the Lord really used that trip to confirm in my heart that this was something that He was calling for us to go and do. And so that was just kind of the start of the foundation of this journey as it was. So it's been a while. It hasn't been a spur of the moment decision. Last month we just kind of got an itch to go and do this, but it's been this process that the Lord has been working on us over and over over the last couple of years.
It's good for the church to know who's listening. What Nick's referring to is the church has sent me and Darren as well in the past to go teach pastors. Mm-hmm. And this was one of those moments where, in this case, Nick and I went and taught pastors in Oakhill and up in the mountains and also in the jungle. I had the opportunity to teach pastors and somewhere around 75 pastors or so. That was a wonderful experience.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think one of the things we have the opportunity to do today is to introduce people to the concept of the International Mission Board. Because I feel like younger folks, they don't often get introduced to that concept anymore, which I don't know whether that's on us as churches or just as a denomination, but As Southern Baptists, we support two missions entities. We support the North American Mission Board, and we support the International Mission Board. And the whole concept is we don't have missionaries that are coming out and knocking on churches' doors individually for money. We as a group collaborate and cooperate together to send missionaries out. And so Nick is going to be going through the International Mission Board to go and serve. So can you tell us what it's like to go through the process of becoming a missionary?
With the International Mission Board, one of the greatest things just on the face of why we chose there is because through the cooperative program that Southern Baptist churches participate in by giving and supporting, missionaries sent through them don't have to worry about fundraising, and they don't have to worry about the financial aspect of supporting themselves on the field, which takes an enormous burden off of the task of already ministering in a cross-cultural context. And so that's one of the primary reasons why we initially looked there, because I've grown up Southern Baptist. I knew about the International Mission Board, and I knew that their mission was something that I loved and wanted to get behind, but also that they took care of their missionaries. So going through that process, though, was not as easy as, hey, put your name on this paper and we'll send you across the world.
Well, praise the Lord for that.
Yes. And as going through that process, it was frustrating at times. You have a lot of questions coming your way. You have a lot of intentional interviews and questionnaires and delays potentially to help you think about what you're actually signing up to do. And that is to, Lord willing, move your family across the world for an indefinite amount of time. And that's a weighty thing. I mean, on the face of it, when you feel kind of the excitement of, I feel called to go to missions and I want to do this. I mean, you kind of maybe ignore some of the things that on the, in the back of your mind, you need to work through before you get onto the field. And that whole process of going through initial application to where we are now has been almost about 2 years. I would say that that's a little above average for most people that we've talked to, but it's not far off. And so I love that about the International Mission Board because it gives me confidence, and I think it should give other people confidence who support the cooperative program that they're doing their job in helping to vet and to make sure that the people who they're sending are called of God to go and are equipped and suitable to survive on the mission field wherever they end up.
Yeah, and another thing the International Mission Board does is they train people to go out. My mom worked for the International Mission Board for a long period of time. She was in the library, and so her job was to help train missionaries to go out in the field. But I remember her telling me that part of the process for becoming a missionary is they actively discourage you not to be a missionary, to kind of weed out people to see if this is really your calling from the Lord. Did you experience that through the process?
Yeah. I mean, well, I think that I never had somebody tell me, like, you shouldn't be a missionary.
Right. Yeah.
But I think that the whole process really is designed to help us understand this is a weighty thing.
Yeah.
And if somebody can convince me not to do it on this side that's on my side, like they love me, they love Christ, and they can convince me not to go, then when I get over there, and I have people who don't know the gospel, and I just face all kinds of discouragement because maybe fruit's not coming as quickly as I thought, or family issues come up, or other things materialize. You have to really grasp onto the fact that you've been called here. And if you have been called here and it's hard, that's okay, because God is still with you and he's going to be the one to help you and sustain you through the trial and through the trouble that you're experiencing, rather than just saying, okay, well, this was harder than I thought, so we're going to go back home.
From a stewardship perspective, it's very encouraging to me to hear that the process is as arduous and difficult as it is, because you go through the process once.
Yes.
And once you go through it, I'm not saying that you're not supervised. I know that you are, those type of things. But the largest issue is being endorsed. You've got to go through the process and then say yes.
Yes.
And so, for those who are giving to Southern Baptist churches, who are participating through missions in the cooperative program, there should be a sense of encouragement to know that we're not putting missionaries on the field who aren't properly looked at.
Yes.
That's an encouraging piece.
Yeah, I think so. And like you said, Matt, the IMB does do training and they do equip people to go. And one of the things that they really help as well with is their whole member care department, is that they help sustain missionaries while they're on the field by either counseling or just resourcing them with things that they can use to help them in their ministry that they're in. Maybe they've hit a wall and they just need some help. They need some encouragement. And so The International Mission Board is there to make sure that whoever they send stays there and is in good spiritual, mental, emotional health to continue on moving forward, taking the gospel to the nations. So,
yeah, and they're to help you focus on the gospel work.
Yes.
So that you're not worried about doing taxes.
That's
or
right.
Worried about healthcare, or where do I get counseling? How do I connect with some person? Or so the logistical stuff. So what is the next step in your journey?
Our journey has been affected, just like everything else in our society right now, by COVID.
You're kidding.
No, I'm not. It's surprising, I know.
It didn't end in 2020?
Surprisingly enough, it's still come back into 2021. So we are right now waiting to go to our onboarding training in Richmond, Virginia. Once IMB missionaries are affirmed and commissioned and appointed by the board of the trustees, they then go to a training in Richmond where it'll be about 7 weeks long. And that'll just be an equipping training to help us understand what is the missionary task. What are we there to do? We're there to enter, evangelize, disciple, raise up leaders, establish churches, and to ultimately exit into another context to repeat that process. And so they're going to help us understand how that applies to our context. But then after that training is over, so we're looking at probably mid-March, early April, we will be transferring over to Japan. And a lot of that is under the umbrella of if the Lord wills, because, as we know right now, Japan is closed and they're contemplating another state of emergency because of the situation that's going on in their country with COVID. So this isn't new necessarily to us in this process. We've kind of been back and forth and understood it's all dependent on a host of factors, but right now, that's kind of what we're looking for right now.
So what would you say to those who are struggling with a call to missions, Nick?
I would say that missions is absolutely something that should be worked through. It's not something that you should lightly consider in the sense that it's just maybe an option. And if it doesn't work out, that, I'll just come back to the States and, hopefully we'll find something else. I would say that I think a call to go and serve in missions is a call to completely relocate your life. In the way that our family processed this call, it was something that we really had to consider, are we willing to say Japan is our home? The Japanese people are going to be our neighbors for the rest of our life as long as the Lord has us there. In that regard, that's something that we really had to consider and pray through. And if this is what you're supposed to do, He will lead you there and give you what you need to move through that process. And it might not be through the International Mission Board. It might be through another agency. There are a lot of other agencies there, but for us, it worked out. But I will say that a call to mission isn't reserved just to one agency or one company or anything like that. A call to mission is a call to fulfill God's call on your life, not just what an agency or an entity or a church. But the Lord uses those great institutions to help further the call that He's put on all of our lives, really. But some of us have been called to go and serve internationally.
The struggle is good.
Yeah.
If someone's struggling with a call for missions, struggle.
Yeah.
That's not a bad thing. What's bad is to push the struggle away.
Yes.
And I think that's part of what you're...
Yeah, if you're trying to pretend that it's not there or that it's maybe not as tough as it is, it's going to be harder in the long run to come to grips with that.
When you meet people who they say they've ran from God's call, they're not struggling. They've pushed that into a place where they don't feel that anymore.
Right.
I did want to ask, and podcasts are not a vodcast, so people can't see you. You do not look Japanese.
No, not at all.
I just thought I'd say that.
I can confirm that Nick does not look Japanese.
Yes.
How many redheaded Japanese people are?
I don't know. Probably very few.
I'm curious culturally, what have you done to get yourself used to Japanese culture other than maybe eat Japanese food?
Yeah. We have done a lot to try and help ourselves know more about Japanese culture because, one of the blessings of living in an internet age is the fact that there's all kinds of information out there to help educate us, even living here in Evansville, Indiana. So one of the primary means that missionaries on the field have told us to help acclimate ourselves here is through something called NHK, which is pretty much their public broadcasting system in Japan. And so they have all kinds of resources there that talk about Japanese culture, different Japanese cities, Japanese spirituality, and all of the, different topics that you really need to be made aware of as a missionary entering into that culture and context. You have to be careful with this, but YouTube is also a good source of information as well. Sometimes getting caught up in YouTuber culture becomes more crazy than actually truthful in anything. Oh, right. But I would say there's all kinds of digital resources out there. But also I've been reading books on missionaries who have served in Japan, about church planting in Japan, about specific barriers to evangelization in Japan. We're just trying to do as much as we can here, in as limited capacity as we are able to do that. But the good news is, for any missionary that's considering that, is there's all kinds of ways to explore any country or people group that you're trying to see whether or not the Lord is calling you to go and engage with that group of people. And I will just say also with language, that's going to be one of the primary things that we're responsible for whenever we get there, is the IMB has structured their missionary terms in such a way that is our first full-time job, is to know the language, learn it as quickly as we can, know the culture and learn that as quickly as we can, so that we have a good foundation to do ministry there. I mean, so that takes a huge pressure off of just thinking, okay, I'm jumping right in and I don't know how to speak to people, so I need to figure out how to share the gospel in English to a Japanese person, and it's not going to work. And so all of these crazy thoughts just go through your head, but the IMB takes that away and just says, learn, take time, because if you can't communicate in the heart language of somebody that you're talking to, then you're not going to be able to really connect and share the gospel with them well and effectively. So that's a great blessing that they've provided to us as well in anticipation for where we're going.
A lot of people don't know this. When IMB sends people out, oftentimes they have cover job. Like I had a friend who was a missionary in Croatia through the IMB, and his cover job was selling cows.
Okay.
Raising cows and selling cows. And through that ministry, he was just sharing the gospel and building a church based on that.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a cover job or something you can talk about? Or?
We don't.
Yeah.
One of the things about going into Japan specifically is we do not have nearly as many security risks or concerns as our fellow coworkers who go into other countries like Croatia or other places. So we do not have to have a job platform when we go there. Japan actually offers missionary visas. And so you go there, the government knows that's what you're there for, and they're good with it. They welcome people actually of other faiths to come in because they see it as beneficial for their people to know about other cultures. And so that's a good thing for us to have that. But also, we don't need to run past the fact that that's such a blessing. I mean, it just frees us. I would say
you're there for gospel purposes.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we don't have to have that cover, even though covers are not bad things in and of themselves, because they give you that way to get into the community and share the gospel with people in a very natural way. Because as you do business and as you build relationships with people that way, we don't have to formulate it that way. But there are people, I believe, who specifically try to not manufacture, but also explore options of specific jobs or ways to connect with people in Japan. But it gives us a way to explore many more dynamics of connection with people rather than just thinking of solely a cover of why we're there.
Yeah. But I think it's interesting, and I think listeners would be interested to understand that the IMB is sending people to places that are really difficult places where if they put on their visa, I would like to go and do missionary work, and be denied. And so we're sending people to a lot of places that they require or they need some sort of cover to go in those places, whether it be a teacher or selling cows or language translator. And we have a lot of people in secure places. If you've never watched an IMB commissioning service, I think everybody should do that. And they're online now.
Yes, and there's one coming up on February 3rd for new missionaries being commissioned. And so, we were able to have our commissioning service back in November, and it was a really special time to be able to just kind of celebrate with our family where the Lord has brought us through in this process. And so, it's a very powerful thing if you've never watched it, to see the way that the Lord is calling people from all over the U.S. to go all over the world.
Yeah, and I think one of the things that's touching to me when you watch those, back 20, 30 years ago, they would most often say, okay, this couple is going to this country and stay where they're serving and what they're going to be doing. But nowadays you watch a commissioning service and a lot of those are like, we can't tell you anything about where they're going. And it just emphasizes the risk that people are undergoing to serve Christ and to share the gospel. Yeah. And that's really cool to see.
Yeah.
So you have kids, right?
I have one daughter.
You have one daughter.
About 2.5 right now.
Yeah. For people that have children and are considering missions, could you talk about that and how that impacted your decision making and things you're thinking about?
Yeah, one thing that the IMB said right on the very beginning as we were entering into this process is, if God is calling you to the mission field, he's also calling your children. Hearing that and thinking through that was very comforting and very weighty at the same time, because it's like, God isn't just calling us with the side effect of us having children, but he has a plan and he has an intention for utilizing my daughter as he's going to utilize me and my wife as we go into this culture. And so thinking about that was really exciting in one ways, but also just was very like, what am I doing? You know, what am I being the kind of father right now to my daughter that is equipping her and training her as in the appropriate way as her age dictates to be ready and to be willing to engage with people who don't look like her and who are different from her and who are going to be from a different culture. That's definitely something we have grown a lot more excited about, because the reality of one of the things that you talked about previously was covers. Is our child is not a cover necessarily, but she is a way for us to build relationships with people who have children in their community. And so our intention is to have her in Japanese school. And as we are there, I mean, missionaries on the field have already told us that that's going to be one of your primary ways initially for you to build relationships with families and for you to have ways to talk with people about the gospel, because it just takes some of those barriers down. Rather than coming up to somebody on the street and just starting up a conversation about the gospel, you have a reason why you're in relationship with that person, just because our children are in the same class together. And so it just helps give us opportunity to show people that we're here. We're here because Jesus has sent us here, and we're here because we all need reconciliation through the gospel. And if my daughter can help us in that process, God, praise God for that. Even at 3 years old, that's an exciting thing to see, that God can use the small things in the world to do incredible, large things that we can't even comprehend. But I would just say, in our experience, missionaries with children come up with difficulties, challenges, but that the Lord is sufficient to help them. Even though the problems don't go away, the trials don't go away, the Lord helps them, and he sees them through those trials and those challenges and gives them the grace that they need to navigate how to deal with. I mean, raising children is difficult to begin with. Raising them in a different culture is even more challenging, but the Lord is good, and he gives us what we need to do that. So I think that even not knowing what the future holds for our family, we know that God is good and he's brought us this far. And however he sees fit to keep us there, we know that he's going to be there and he's going to be helping us.
Well, being American often is a gospel opportunity as well.
Yeah.
Because regardless of what the opinion is, everybody has an opinion about America and what Americans are like. And,
yes.
And often, what do you think people are in Japan think of Americans right now?
I think that most people from Japan think about America as maybe they always have, in a sense that they are friendly towards Americans. They like Americans. I know that whenever we went back in last July in 2019, I got a lot of stares, and I don't necessarily think it was just because of the fact that I was really tall, but that might have been the case. But I think it was just because, like, you're different. They would ask, where are you from? And in kind of like a broken English. And the word for the person from the United States is Amerikajin. And so that's where you're from. And so they instantly recognize something's different about you. And that does give you kind of a way to say, here's why I'm here. Mm-hmm. Because that'll be pretty much the next question. You know, why are you here? Well, you're on vacation, you're just visiting friends or whatever it is. But we have an opportunity then to kind of steer it away from those things and bridge into a gospel conversation. And so, yeah, it's just kind of a natural way to just use what's different about us in that culture to just say, yeah, I mean, here's why we're here. We're here because Jesus has sent us here.
Amen. Well, how can we pray for you and your family?
Yeah, we have a lot going on right now. We're in this week where we have to pretty much wrap up meetings with people. We're just talking with people about all of these things that we're doing. So thank you for having me on this podcast. I'm glad to be able to share with you about what we're doing. But prayers specifically for our family are just language learning first. Japanese is notoriously difficult for English speakers. And so it's going to be about 2 to 3 years was what they estimate before somebody to actually gain competency and fluency in the language to where the IMB would be satisfied with putting you on your main ministry assignment. We have a long road ahead of us for language, and so just pray that we would be able to learn it well and to learn it effectively so that, my intention is to not just be able to have minimal conversations. I want to be able to help people and empathize with people in language and preach and to share the gospel winsomely and persuasively. And so that doesn't come from just minimally knowing. And so pray that the Lord would give us a supernatural ability to do that. But also just in the adjustment with our family. Our family, my side of the family lives here in Evansville mainly. Melissa's family, my wife, her family's spread out all over the U.S. and mainly in Arizona. But we are so blessed to have family that loves what we're doing and loves the gospel. So that's a great thing. But still, it's going to be an adjustment, and it's going to be a hard thing for us to not be here anymore from our perspective and from their perspective. So just pray that, the Lord would help us as we seek to maintain communication. One of the great things about living in an internet age as well is you can get on all kinds of internet platforms and communicate instantly all across the world. And so that's a blessing, but at the same time, nothing can replace your loved one being next to you. So, and then as well, just pray for Oakhill. I've had to transition off staff, and they are now going to enter into this time of seeking to replace the position eventually. And so just pray for that church, that they would just continue moving forward with the gospel, prioritizing it and reaching our community here. There's all kinds of ways that you could be praying for us, but those are some main ways.
I want to just encourage those who are listening now. Sometimes we have a tendency to hear pray for someone, and we say we do, and then we don't. I want to encourage you as you're listening, stop and pray. Pray for Nick and Melissa Scott. Your daughter's name is? Eliana. Pray for Nick and Melissa and Eliana. People will come back and they're going to listen to this podcast. And every time you listen to this podcast, remember Nick, and pray for Nick and Melissa and Eliana. Pray for their families they're separated from. Pray for Oakhill Baptist Church. And may that happen every time that this podcast is heard. Write their names down, put it on your refrigerator, and pray for them. Let this moment be a moment that you're reminded to pray for our missionaries across the world, and specifically for Nick and Melissa and Eliana as they're in Japan. Okay? Our tendency sometimes is to say, well, we have lots of missionaries. We have thousands of missionaries. We have one in this office. They're ours. They're being sent from Oakhill Baptist Church, but they're a Southern Baptist Church. We're supporting them as well. Nick is my friend. He is a friend of our church. And we need to be in a situation that every time we hear this, we pray. I just want to encourage you to do that.
I said this in the last time I podcasted with Brian Van Doren from Oakhill, who's on staff in their youth minister. We like the staff at Oakhill. we're not in competition. We're in kingdom partnership with exactly Oakhill, right. And that's exactly right. We love you guys, and we wish the best, and we will be praying for you guys.
I will say, if people want to continue following along with what we're doing, we do have a website, thescotsinjapan.com. And we also have a Facebook group. And so you can find more information about following us specifically if you want to know how to pray for us in the future and keep up with what we're doing. We'd love to be able to connect with you and talk with you about what it looks like to be a missionary, what it looks like to particularly partner with things that are going on in Japan, and think about praying specifically for those things.
Yeah, I think one of the benefits of this podcast, and people think through your struggle in your journey, for others who have struggled with their journey, if they can go to your website or find a contact, they can talk to another person who's gone through it. I think that's a big resource. Yeah. And so, I mean, I know people in our church right now who are struggling with the question of, should I be on the international mission field? Should I not? If so, how do I figure it out? So on and so on. And I think that part of this conversation is very important. No two journeys are the same, but the struggle is always real. And I think that's important. And God's doing that in us as He's conforming us to the image of His Son. He's making us more like Him.
Well, I'll end this podcast in a different way. So for you that are out there listening to this podcast, what I'm going to ask for you to do right now is, instead of turning this off and going about your day, take a few minutes and pray for the Scott family. That'd be a good response to this podcast. So I want to encourage you to do that as you're listening right now. Thanks for tuning in to the Northwoods Church Matters podcast. If you'd like to find out more about Northwoods Church, you can visit us at our website, www.northwoodschurch.org. Again, that's www.northwoodschurch.org.